Today we're going to be in the book of Genesis, chapter 28, verses 10 through 22. So you're welcome to follow along. Hear the word of our Lord. Jacob left Beersheba and went toward Haran. He came to a certain place and stayed there for the night, because the sun had set. Taking one of the stones of the place, he put it under his head and lay down in that place. And he dreamed that there was a stairway set up on the earth, the top of it reaching to heaven, and the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. And the Lord stood beside him and said, I am the Lord, the God of Abraham, your father, and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie, I will give to you and to your offspring, and your offspring shall be like the dust of the earth. And you shall spread abroad the west and to the east and to the north and to the south. And all the families of the earth shall be blessed in you and in your offspring. Know that I am with you and will keep you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land. For I will not leave you until I have done what I have surely promised you. Then Jacob woke from his sleep and said, Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it. And he was afraid and said, How awesome is this place! This is none other than the house of the Lord, and this is the gate of heaven. So Jacob rose early in the morning. He took the stone that he had put under his head, set it up under the pillar, and poured oil over it. He called the place Bethel, but the name of the city was Luz at first. Then Jacob made a vow, saying, If God will be with me and will keep me in this way, then I go, and will give me bread to eat and clothing to wear, so that I come again to my father's house in peace. Then the Lord shall be my God, and the stone which I have set up for a pillar shall be God's house. And of all that you give me, I will surely give 1/10 to you. So may God add his richest blessing to the reading of his holy word. And Jacob's easily one of my favorite characters in the Old Testament, one of my favorite people to read about in the book of Genesis, and I would encourage you to do so. There's just a few short chapters about Jacob in Genesis, and they're all really good. And what you'll find when you read through that particular part of it is that, Jacob is acting on his own, yet he's connected to a family, and he's also part of a family and a group that has been promised by God that they are going to be plentiful, they're going to multiply, they're going to prosper, and Jacob is part of that story as you read through the book of Genesis. And when you read the story about it, his whole life is fun to read about. He's got the account of how when he is born, he's a twin, and he comes out grasping his brother Esau's ankle, his foot, and they are so close in their birth order. Esau, his brother, is very different from him. It says that Esau is covered in red hair. We're not quite sure what all that means, but he's covered in red hair. And Esau is the favorite of Jacob's father. He's able to go out and he can hunt for food. He can do all the manly things. And then there's Jacob. He is the favorite of his mom. He's his mom's kid, right? And rather than being the one that goes out to hunt, Jacob is better known for being a good cook, And we'll just leave it there. And we'll say that there's already that dynamic going on in his life. And one day, his brother Esau has been out. It's been a hot day, a long day, and Esau comes back to the place where their family is, and he's hungry, he's famished. And Jacob says, Hey, would you like some of this yummy stew? And Esau says, You bet I would, right? This is in the King James Version, right? He says, Of course I would. He says, All right, well, if you want this bowl of soup, this bowl of red lentils, you can have it. All you got to do is give me your birthright. And Esau says, Sure, give me the bowl. And Esau wolfs down the bowl and gives over his birthright to Jacob, right? And so that's one piece of the story. And the next part that's there is that later in life, after Isaac has grown old, his father Isaac has grown old, his mother and Jacob conspire against Isaac, and there's a time where Isaac said, before I die, I'd really like some tasty venison soup, some tasty venison, and it'd be good if Esau would go out and get it for me, and this becomes the chance for Jacob to move in once more. He tricks his father and he says, would you give me your blessing? And sure enough, he gets the blessing from his father. And so already Jacob has swindled his brother Esau out of the birthright and the blessing. And when Esau finds this out, he rightfully is upset. He goes to his father, cries over the whole situation. He's like, hey, come on, Dad, don't you have another blessing you can give me? And instead of that, he simply says, no, I've already given it to Jacob. And so Esau makes a vow to himself, and he says, the moment that Isaac is dead, my father is dead, I am going to kill my brother Jacob. And so when Jacob's mom finds out about this vow and this promise, she says to Jacob, I think it's best you get out of here, right? There's nothing stopping Esau from killing you. Best you move on, go live with my brother, your uncle Laban, and make your way there. And also, Esau, the women he married, we don't like them. So when you go over and you visit your uncle Laban, find a wife over there and then bring her back, right? And so that's the whole warning that she gives to Jacob, and Jacob flees. He runs. There's nothing standing between Esau and his revenge, and so Jacob makes his way out of there. So that's just a little bit of the backstory to this particular passage. And it says that on his way over to find his uncle Laban and to live with him and relative safety there, he goes on to this certain location and stays there for the night because the sun had set. And it says, taking one of the stones of the place, he put it under his head and laid it down in that place. And so just to kind of get a sense of what's going on here, it means that Jacob didn't take much with him, right? He's not even got a pillow or anything to lay his head on. He's just got a rock that he places his head on, lays on the ground, looking at the stars, and that's all that Jacob's got with him, right? Just laying on the ground, head on a rock, and this is where Jacob has found himself. He has tried and successfully swindled his brother out of a blessing and a birthright, and the fruit of it so far is he gets to sleep on the ground with his head on a rock, right? Not anything great happening in his life. At this point, Jacob's probably afraid. He's worried about what the future is going to be, doesn't know exactly what's going to happen next, and this is where he finds himself, at this spot with nothing to his name, no accomplishments, no achievements other than swindling his brother, which, how do you get over a betrayal like that, right? And we find Jacob in that spot. And it says that as he's laying there, he has a dream. This is verse 12. It says, and he dreamed that there was a stairway set up on the earth, the top of it reaching to heaven, and the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. And so Jacob has this vision, this look into something that is divine, something that's powerful, something that's holy. He has a glimpse, a peek behind the curtain, if you will, to see something amazing at work in the world. And it says a stairway. You could translate that as ladder or other ways that it's been put together, but you get this idea that the angels are coming out of heaven. God's over Jacob. God's looking down upon Jacob, and the angels are going back and forth with messages of whatever angels do. And he's got this powerful and amazing vision of what the cosmos is really like. He gains a new perspective. If you've ever been on top of a high mountain and looked down and seen the world in a different way, or been up in a plane and you can all of a sudden see how small things are below you and how interconnected everything is, or if you just manage to find a new way to look at the world or a new perspective, then you've got a small sense of everything that Jacob is experiencing in this moment. His life has gone from fearful and regrettable and caught up in all kinds of mischief to all of a sudden he's got a small taste, a small glimpse of God at work in the world, right? And so not only does he get this vision, a stairway set up to the earth from reaching from heaven to his heart and into his life, but then he also hears from the Lord. And it says, the Lord stood beside him and said, I am the Lord, the God of Abraham, your father, and God of Isaac. The land on which you lie I will give you and to your offspring. And your offspring shall be like the dust of the earth, and you shall spread abroad the west and to the east and to the north and the south. And all the families of the earth shall be blessed in you and your offspring. Know that I am with you, and I keep you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land, for I will not leave you until I have done what I have surely promised. Right? And so not only does he get this divine image of the stairway to heaven, but he gets the assurance of God. And this is the same God who has promised his grandfather Abraham and his father Isaac that his descendants are going to be plentiful and that the whole world will be blessed through them, right? Assuring words, things that you and I would all point to and say, man, that sounds like a pretty amazing thing. To be able to get a glimpse of God's power, to hear from God, these are things that we all tell ourselves we would appreciate, right? And Jacob realizes the greatness of it and says, surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it. And he was afraid, and he says, in this particular translation, 17 says, how awesome is this place. In the King James, I believe, it says, how dreadful is this place, right? It's quite a difference, but he's saying, how powerful is this place, how surprising this place. I didn't know this would happen. I didn't experience this ever before. It's what Jacob's getting to. And he says, this is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. Right? He's encountered the power of heaven, the power of God, seen a vision, seen something powerful. The next day, he builds a little place of worship and pours oil over it. And then in verse 20, he says something that originally I thought was really powerful, but it says, if God will be with me and will keep me in this way that I go, and will give me bread to eat and clothing to wear, so that I come again to my Father's house in peace, then the Lord shall be my God. Right? Let me read it for you one more time. If God will be with me and will keep me in this way, that I go and will give me bread to eat and clothing to wear, so that I come again to my Father's house in peace, then the Lord shall be my God. And when you originally read it, you kind of think to yourself, well, this is great, right? You can look at it and you can say, Jacob was on the wrong path. God shows him a stairway and has a little chat with him, and now he's going to move in a better direction. He says, the Lord shall be my God even, right? He's making a declaration, a faith commitment. He's making a statement about what's going to come next to him, for him. But if you kept on reading in Genesis, you might be a little surprised, because it's not as if all of a sudden Jacob's life takes a whole different direction. Rather, you find another couple stories along the way where Jacob is not doing the right thing in the eyes of God, or Jacob does some things that are quite questionable. It would be so nice if I could just put a little bow on it today and say, hey, if your life's not going well, what you really need is a vision from God, have a little chat with God, and everything will be perfect, right? But that's not where we find Jacob going next. Rather, as you dig a little deeper in the statement, Jacob is very clear about where he is in his faith and in his walk. He says very clearly, he says, look, you've done something amazing. It was good to hear from you. Now here's my terms, right? Jacob's still trying to swindle. Jacob's still trying to make a deal. Jacob's still trying to bargain with God. After everything God has done, after everything God has shown him and done for his ancestors, Jacob's still at a place where he thinks he deserves even more, or that he thinks he can bargain with God, right? He says what? If God will be with me and will keep me in this way that I go, and will give me bread to eat and clothing to wear, so that I come again to my Father's house in peace, then the Lord shall be my God, right? Then the Lord shall be my God. If you will do this for me, Lord, then you get to be my God, right? That's Jacob's agreement with God. If you'll do these things for me, Lord, then you'll be my God. Jacob still believes he's in control. Jacob still is trying to bargain with God. How many times in our own lives do we come to a place of worship, or do we get to a place in prayer? And those are exactly our words as well. God, if you'll do these things, then I will give some good thought for letting you be my God, right? Am I being a little too real for y'all, or even following me today? If you will do these things for me, Lord, A, B, and C, then I will Give some thought to letting you be my God. That's where Jacob is, right? That we get to a spot where we'll say, if you'll bless my family, if you'll give me a promotion, if you'll help me hit the lotto, if you'll cure that illness, if you'll fix this thing, if you'll make sure that my team wins next Sunday, somehow beat the Chiefs, Lord, just let them do that. Then I will know of your power and your greatness, and I will say good things about you. Until then, I'm going to need more, right? Isn't that where Jacob goes? If you'll give me, it doesn't sound like much at this point. Give me bread, give me clothing, return me safely to home. It doesn't seem like a whole lot at that point, but Jacob prospers. God blesses Jacob immensely. From this point on, he grows in wealth, he grows in power, he grows in authority, and all along the way, he's being blessed by God. The hopeful thing, the good thing that's here, God never gives up on Jacob. We should never lose sight of that. God's always the hero of the Old Testament. It's never the character. It's always God is faithful to Jacob, even though Jacob is still trying to bargain, still trying to make an agreement. And instead of that, of saying these words of, if you'll do these things, then what should we really be looking for? If it's not, if you'll do these things, Lord, then you'll be my God, then what should we really be looking for? And I think we find it in Paul's writings in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, where Paul summarizes the greatness of Christ, and he says, God has done all these things through Jesus, and he will be our all in all. And I think when I look at Jacob's story, I ask the question of, what if he had simply said that, not asked for all the things, not made some shaky promises about what his future would be, but rather just simply said, you are my all in all, God. From here on out, you're all I need, you're all that I want, you're all that I desire, you're all that I could possibly dream of, and just embraced God for being God. Rather than setting up all these requirements or expectations or leading to disappointment because God didn't give us the car we wanted or the lifestyle we dreamed of or whatever it is we think we have, to simply say, God is my all in all. There's a famous painter and poet named William Blake, and he said this, he said, more is the cry of the mistaken soul, less than all cannot satisfy man. More and more is the cry of the mistaken soul, less than all cannot satisfy man. And William Blake, he's poetic, but I'm going to still try and help you understand his words. He's simply saying, that when we get to a spot where we're saying, if you'll do this, if you'll take care of these things, we'll never be satisfied. We'll never find the life with God that we truly need or that we truly want. He says, only when we recognize God as all, when we say he is our all in all, can we find satisfaction or contentment or peace with our lives, right? And peace with God, to really have God and understand who God is, right? So what I look at this story and see is that simple question of, are we in the same spot as Jacob, where we've encountered God or recognized the power and the presence of God, and yet we're still not quite on the path that we know leads to life and life eternal? Are we still in a spot where we're constantly coming to God with a request for more and more, even though God's given us clothing and bread and so much more? Are we still finding our lives disappointing and not satisfying because we keep on looking for more and more? Or are we looking for God and saying, you are all I need. You are, as we sang earlier, my one thing. Or give me Jesus, you can have the rest of the world. Just give me him. That is where I believe this vision and so much of the Old Testament points us toward. And I don't think it's with mistake that when we look at the Gospel of John, one of the first things that happens is that Jesus is recruiting disciples, and they're still trying to figure out who he is and what he is about. And there's a disciple named Nathanael. He declares, he says, Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel. And Jesus even quotes from this particular passage, which we said, "You believe because I told you, I saw you under the fig tree. You will see greater things than that," he said. "Very truly I tell you, you will see heaven open and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man." Right? And Jesus is saying, when you come to him, when you find him, you find the one who can be all in all. When you find Jesus, you no longer are worried about the food that you need or the clothing that you need or the many other more things that you're calling out for, but rather you find the one who satisfies. You find the one who can redeem, who can heal. In Jesus Christ, we have the one who can shepherd us along to paths of green righteousness. You have the one who can bring light into your darkness. You have the one who can put you in places where you find satisfaction because he is the bread of life. In Jesus, you have the one who is the way, the truth, and the life. In him and in all things, he is the one that we truly desire, the one that we truly hope for. In him, we have the one who I believe the psalmist was speaking about in Psalm 16, who he says, "The Lord is my cup and my portion. In him I can be satisfied. I can find great delight and great life and find even greater things than stairways and angels, but to find God in everything, in all of my life and in all of my heart." So more than just making a commitment today like Jacob did, where he say, "If you'll do these things, then you'll be my God," I would invite you to ask the simple question of, am I being led by Christ? Is he the one who is guiding my steps and helping me to find that path, that narrow way that leads to life? Is he the one in whom I'm abiding and finding sustenance in life? Is he the one that's able to bring me to a place where I'm finding true joy and true contentment? Is he the one who I call my Lord and my Savior? Ask yourself that question today. Don't be like Jacob to keep on along the path that's not going to truly bless you, but rather find the way that Christ can lead you and follow him.